In this video, I want to talk to you about code reviews because it's really difficult to actually review someone else's code. Yes, you're probably checking, has it got the right spacing, the right styles, but really you should be using a linter for that. But what else should you check for? Well, one, test, does it work? I mean, that is the first thing. Hopefully you've got some automated tests that can check it, but also check from a user's perspective, does it work? The other thing that I look for, is it consistent? Not just in the exact details, but it is the kind of overall style of the way it's been done consistent, right? Coding's an art. It can be done in so many different ways. And you could get 100 people in the room and you could ask them to code the same goal, but they all do it differently. It is an art, it is beautiful, it's part of the fun, and we can all learn from each other. But is it consistent within the project? For example, I don't mind if we use single quotes or double quotes. What I do mind is it consistent within the project? But that can be checked by a linter, so we don't even need to worry about that, and that can be fixed by something like Prettier as well. The other thing to look for is there duplicate code? Can we optimize it? Can we abstract that code and reuse it in other places? But remember, don't optimize too early. Maybe the optimization has happened too soon, and I see that happen a lot as well. I think the standard rule of thumb for this is if it's been used in 3 different places, then it's time to optimize. 2 different places? We'll see. Have a think, chat to the maintainers, chat to the author of the pull request, chat to the community, and see what they think as well, and see what else is coming up. Another thing that is definitely worth checking is, especially if it's a reusable component, does it affect other areas? The amount of times I've seen people fix a component, correct, and it works better in one particular place. But in all the other places it's used, it actually doesn't work or looks terrible or something's wrong. And the automated test will pass if it's checking for functionality, but then actually visually on mobile or desktop or whatever it is, it doesn't quite work quite right. And I think the author needs to check this. They could just do a search of the code base and see what else it's used and actually have a check themselves, but most of them don't. So when you're reviewing it, do double check it before you're approving. Even if the author says they've checked every usage of that component or module or whatever it is, check it again yourself. I think that's really important. We talked about, does it work correctly, but does the whole pull request work correctly? I mean, AI is getting really, really popular now, and people are probably overusing that, especially at the beginning. They kind of want to go faster than they can, and I think people will get too excited about speed rather than quality, and so they'll get a response from ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot, just accept it, submit it a pull request, and think, the maintainers or the person reviewing will fix it. And we do, but it gives the other person kind of a bad reputation. You definitely don't want to do that, but as a maintainer, you really need to check, does it actually work? And hopefully the author has checked it already. But unfortunately, sometimes they haven't. And like I said, check it if it's worked in multiple places. And when you're giving feedback as a maintainer, or even a reviewer who isn't a maintainer on the project, you can still give feedback. Make sure that you give constructive feedback. Make sure you have empathy. The author has probably spent a bit of time on it. Maybe they needed to spend a bit more. Maybe they spent loads of time on it and they're still struggling. So definitely have empathy and make sure you can help them along the way to the next level. And if you're writing a response, a reply, inline comment, overall review, whatever it is, make sure you give context. Link to any resources that could be helpful. And if you've got a suggestion, maybe it should be done in a different way, and you mentioned the fancy or the official name, try and give an example, even if it's a pseudo example, but try and give an example that will really help the person move along. They'll feel really welcome. Keep in mind, they won't remember what you said to them, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that's the most important thing. And you don't want to have this conversation that goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all the time. Try and give them as much information. Obviously not too much. Don't copy and paste sections from the documentation, but try and give them as much information to help them move them along, but keep it concise as well. And again, this takes practice as a maintainer. So it is fun to do both sides, to be a contributor, be an author of a pull request, and to be a maintainer. But remember, you can also review pull requests even if you are a maintainer. So please keep those in mind. Especially, does it work in all places it is used? During Hacktoberfest, it was definitely interesting to see a lot of pull requests that hadn't been even tested, or they weren't tested all the areas it was used. So as a maintainer, we have that responsibility to do that extra check. And if you want to come and geek out with me on the open source project BIODROP, I work full time on this, so I'd love to come and geek out with you. The maintainers, the community are super supportive. So even if you're just getting into tech, even if you're not in tech, come and join us. Your fresh pair of eyes will be a superpower to our project, to our documentation, to our tutorials. And if you're more experienced, we'd love to get your support and your experience involved in the project. I'll see you there, link in the description below.